Damien, and tonight I am going to be talking about the birds in my backyard. This speech is to try to incorporate more vocal variety and body language. I tend to do a lot of this when I'm speaking, so now I'm going to try to stretch it out a little bit. So, birds in my backyard. As some of you may know, anybody that follows me on YouTube, I have found a new hobby of bird watching. And I like to feed the birds outside of our house, and really I like to watch their behavior. It gives me something to do. I feel a little more in tune with nature. The first bird that I'm going to be talking about is a blue jay. This right here is a photo from one of my videos, and the blue jays I consider to be beautiful bullies. They love to travel in packs. They're one, right now we currently probably have a family of at least 6 or more blue jays that come from time to time. They're known to scare off a lot of other birds. They come in and you just see them swoop in, and all the other birds scatter away when they're feeding. Males and females, they usually have similar patterns, so it's hard to distinguish between what gender you're looking at when you're looking at these birds. And their sounds are they're loud and they're slightly annoying, and they're very distinct. But a fun fact about these blue jays is that they can also have a sound of mimicking a hawk. So there's times I'll sit outside and I'll just be watching the birds eating, and then all of a sudden I hear this hawk noise and I'm like, where's the hawk? And then I just see it's a damn blue jay making this sound. And I'm like, oh, that would be so cool to have witnessed a hawk, but just a blue jay. I love them still nonetheless. Another thing that I notice about blue jay behavior is they are very risk adverse. They observe other birds before ever engaging in any activity. So when I first started feeding, I told Pascal, I'm like, man, I really hope that I can get blue jays and cardinals. But these little common birds came first, and I was like, man, I would love to see one. So they like to watch out. They scope it out. They're like, let me check these other birds out, see if it's safe. I'm not going to go down there. Screw that. I'm not going to get killed. But once they see that the coast is clear, they're like, all right, now I can come down. And then they come in numbers, and it's just like, it's crazy. It's crazy. The next bird that I am going to be discussing, I feel like it's like one of those like 6th grade science projects. I'm like talking about my birds right now. But the next one is the northern cardinal. So here you'll see you have the male cardinal, you have a female cardinal at the bottom, and then you have a baby cardinal. I don't know if you can see these, Anthony, apologies for that. These birds, they're one of my favorites. They're not my favorite, but they are one of my favorites, and there's a few reasons. I love the color red, and they're very predominantly red. They're very family-oriented birds. You see these birds, they stick to their own family pack. So right now we have 2 families that kind of come to feed in our backyard, and it's usually the mother and the father, and then their babies, if you will. They'll come down, and similarly to the blue jays, they were very risk-averse. They took some time to come in. The mother and father scoped it out first, and then later you would see the babies come in and start feeding and stuff like that. Another thing I really love about them is they kind of remind me of lovebirds. Sometimes you'll see the male cardinal pick up a seed, and he'll hop over and bring it to the female cardinal. Even though the female cardinal has plenty of food, come over and feed it to her, and then hop back over. And it's just like, it's really cute to watch them. The males, as I mentioned, the males are they have strong red, and then the females have like a brown with some red. They have a beautiful singing song, but when you see them, when they're communicating just in general, they use a lot of chirping. So it's really cute, and it's kind of cool to see them. One thing I like about the cardinals is they are very respected. When they land, it's like nobody messes with them, and they don't really mess with anybody. The blue jays and them, they kind of like, hey, I see you, you see me. We're not gonna. All the other birds fly away when the blue jays come, with the cardinals, they stand and the blue jays are, all right, I see you, man. We're good. Like Crips and Bloods, man. It's like this little gang rival. It's like, don't mess with me. We're on both sides here. We got this. And as I stated, we have a couple of families that come in. The next one, these ones are interesting. This is called a robin. So the thing about this bird is, originally when I would see them in our yard, I thought they were kind of creepy. They have this like big black eye and then this white ring around it. So when you really look close, they're just like this creepy looking birds, but they're actually kind of cool. When you see them walking around, they love to like run They love running across. They don't like other birds, they hop or like flutter their wings when they move around. These ones, they love to run, and they're just always running around, looking around. They stay patiently staring out at the sky. They're very interesting birds, to say the least. Their colors are fairly bland. The only way to distinguish between a male and a female is the emphasis of the color on their breastplate. So the females have a little bit less, they're not as exuberant, if you will. And then their babies kind of look, they have like spotted coats. A fun fact about these is we actually have a second nest of robins that is in around our property. So we had a nest of robins that hatched, I would say like last month, where a couple of babies hatched out and it was under our deck. Now we have another one in a tree in our front yard, and they're just like the coolest thing to see. It's like when you have like life growing around you. They too are very family oriented. They travel as like the mother and father both take turns nesting or like resting on top of the babies and feeding them and stuff. So it's really cool. And last fun fact with robins, it takes 28 days from laying eggs to leaving the nest. Finally, my favorite bird of all time, which is actually a fairly common bird, but it is called the gray catbird. This bird is the definition of exuberant. This one right here is, they're common little birds, but for me, they represent so much more than just like a little, I have a little nickname, it's little GCB, because they're just so cute and fun. The reason they're my favorite bird is because they're so versatile. They're the only bird that I've seen that eats seeds, they eat worms, they eat fruits, and they drink the sugar water. They just, whatever is around to them, they just take it. Like, hey, I'm hungry, I'm gonna eat whatever is available. They're also very courageous and a little weird. And this is the thing I love about them. Like, you'll see some of these things that they do. They're like the only smaller bird that will stand up to a blue jay. Even if they lose, they learn their lesson very quickly not to mess with them. They don't stand up to them anymore. But they puff up, like you see sometimes when they land against bigger birds, they puff up their feathers. And they just love to just like demonstrate their, they're trying to look big and tough and everything. And they're interesting little birds. And they can fly like normal birds, but they can also flutter like a hummingbird, which is also really cool. Their main sounds are somewhat of a semi-cry and like a cat meow. So if you ever hear like this meow, that's a gray catbird. And they also do really make beautiful melodies. And the other thing I really love about them is they can mimic other birds similar to mockingjays. So they can mimic melodies and stuff like that too. So those are the birds in my backyard.